So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is why I have been preaching about the virtual OS, meaning Kali or something like that, because this is now where you are going to be kind of dangerous, very dangerous. Because this is where the most destructive commands are going to be, or some of the most destructive commands. We're going to be using the OS, the sys module, and other and other modules like that. And as I said, what you do with some of those commands could adversely affect your host OS or your host system. So the best thing to do is when you experiment with these commands, you do so in a virtualized environment, whether or not you are using UTM on your Mac or whether or not you're using the Windows virtualization on the Win32 kernel, and such as VMware Fusion as an example for Windows. But I am on a Mac. I've made that perfectly clear, and I prefer the UTM because it just works best with the M1 through M4 Macs. And that's how I'm going to be demonstrating. So those of you that are using Windows, you can just adapt these same commands to your Windows environment. But we are going to start off with what we should have been talking about last. Not really what we should have been talking about last week. We just ran out of time. But we're going to be taking up on and starting up with the OS module. So the OS module, if I can move to the next PowerPoint slide right here, it provides a way to manipulate your current system or whatever system you have remoted to. So think of it from a cybersecurity standpoint. If somebody has downloaded a file into your system through an email attachment and your system runs Python, and you can, for example, import the OS module, you can run local commands on your system through the OS module. So for example, we have import OS. Now this is through idle right here, so you could also write a script to do this, but you have to import the OS, and then here you say os.system, and then this is the command that is actually being run. You should remember and recognize this command as a common command in Linux, and of course it's going to show a printout of your local directory. So hopefully you can understand the power of the ability to run script commands. Let's take a look. Let's just do ls or list the current directory, and we can do ls-l, which gives us the long version, or ls-al, which gives us even more information, including the hidden files. But we can see that there is a week 12 right here. So if we do ls and do week 12, we can see that there are no files in week 12. Actually, let me do remove-r, and I'm going to do remove week 12, and we can see that there is no week 12. I'm going to do make dir week 12 just to replace, just to basically show that those are the commands to remove directories and create directories. Now, if I did just rm week 12, it says cannot remove week 12, it's a directory, so we actually have to do the -r switch right there to actually remove it. But we can see that week 12 has been removed, so I'm going to do make directory week 12, and I'm going to do another command called touch, which creates another program. So we're going to do touch week 12, and then we'll say my file.txt, and we're going to say list here. Where was that? We'll say list al week 12, and we can see that there is only one file, and it's called my file. But you can see the style that the list command, and even without switches, we can see see that this is the Linux style, but really the Linux style can be seen through the -L switch right there. So the Linux style is kind of like showing everything. So if we go ahead and go into our idle right here, and we can do import OS, we can run the os.system, and then within the system method, we can have our parameters. The parameters, basically any command we want to run. So we can say ls-l, and we just have to put it inside quotes, and it will actually, now this is in the Python idle, and it's actually running system commands, meaning commands on your local network. So let me reiterate, I have this danger symbol right here simply because the OS module and other Python modules can run commands that can directly affect your local system, meaning they are destructive, which is why I'm imploring you to please make sure that you have your Kali or whatever virtualized Linux system up and running, whether or not you're going through UTM or through VMware. So that being said, let's move on here. In terms of the OS module, it can not only destroy things, it also has some certain file processing capabilities. But the point is that when it comes to doing this, which might be step A, you can imagine it's also implied that you can do other commands to make it destructive. So for example, here are some methods for the OS O_RD only or read only for opening files that already exist, and there is WR only, that's for writing only. And here's a very powerful one right here, and let me kind of like highlight that. That is RDWR, that's for opening for reading and writing. And here's another one. Here is the pipe, which is in, let me grab another hue, color. That's a pipe, so it actually represents kind of like a sequence. So it will go ahead and write. It'll actually open a file for both reading and writing, but it will also create it if the file doesn't exist. And the name of the file, and I'm hoping that everyone could read this carefully, I just called it my new file.txt. And let me go ahead and erase this, and while I'm at it, I'll erase that. And that basically says it's going to go ahead and create that file, and then it's going to write this text to that file. Now, if you're wondering what this line is, in Python 3, these type of methods only write it in terms of a byte form. So this means you're encoding that string as an actual string as opposed to a byte file. And then this actually writes that string to the file, and then it actually closes it, and this prints that the file has been closed successfully. So I guess you could say the implication of this is that you can actually open up a file on a remote computer. You could create a script essentially that does this, and if you basically float that script as an unnamed attachment, you can actually fool somebody into downloading that attachment, have it execute, and it will create any file you want on your computer. Because keep in mind, these commands work on both Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, and that's the dangerous thing. And so that's why we're demonstrating it here on my Kali OS, which is virtualized. And so guess what? It won't really destroy your system. But you can imagine you could actually open up a file and have commands that maybe delete files. Imagine if you ran this on a Windows system and you actually asked it to create a file, and within the file it actually maybe had syntax that removed all of the files in your, for example, system32 file. That would be disastrous to your system, which is why, from a cybersecurity standpoint, you have to be very aware of what your team is downloading on their personal email. So you could have all of these cybersecurity rules and syntax in place. You can have your firewalls up to speed. But unfortunately, if somebody internally to your system downloads a file, I basically exploited your own system because you've invited them in. So anyways, this is what this script actually does. All right, let's take a look and see if we can basically apply these concepts. So I am in the Python. I'm in the, I guess you could say, script mode, meaning not idle. And we can do present working directory, and we can see that we're in home JSON Python 3, and we can actually move up to week 11. Or actually, well, let's just do this. Let's just say ls-l. We can see that there is week 11 and week 12. Let's go ahead and remove one of the directories. Let's say remove -r week 12. All right, now that we have created the week 12, we can verify that we removed week 12. Let's go ahead and go to our Python 3 idle right here, and we're going to go ahead and import OS, and we're going to say os.system, and this is where we can actually put in our different commands. So we're going to do all long right here, and that actually produces the long list. And we can go ahead and make week 12 directory. I just verified to you through here that week 12, I verified via this command that week 12 no longer exists. So we can go back to this and we can say make dir week 12, and this will actually make week 12, and we can go back to our ls right here, and we can verify that in fact week 12 has been made. And what we can do is we can actually create a file within week 12. So we can say we can utilize the command called touch, and let me do this, touch, and then we can say week 12, and then we'll say my new file .txt. And then we can verify that this has occurred. We can say ls-al, and then we can actually have it list the week 12 directory, and we can see that in fact we do have my new file .txt that has been created. Okay, let's start off this next segment with the command present working directory or PWD. Now you can see I'm in the home JSON Python 3 week 11 directory. So if I say ls, these are the files that are located in this directory. Now, in order for me to take a look at the week 12 directory that was just created, we would have to say ls, and then we can say, and here it is, I already tried out this command before, home JSON Python week 12. So that is a particular type of call to a directory called the absolute path. Now there's another example of relative path. An example of relative path is when you don't have to specify that exact directory. So for example, we are in the Python 3 directory. So for example, if we just wanted to say this directory and then week 12, it says no such file or directory. So what we could do is say cd and then go up one, or shall I say do this, and then week 12, we can actually see that there are in fact no files in that directory. And as a matter of fact, if we actually just change directory, so that is home JSON Python 3, and then week 12, and it's, let's see, no such file or directory. Let me see, 1 second. Oh, I misspelled week. My apologies. All right, so if we do ls, and then we actually show that there is a file called my new directory, and we go back to the present directory, we can see that we are now in week 12. But let's go down one directory and do present working directory, and now we are here, and then we can do ls, and then we can actually go back into week 11. So what I just did there is, when you are one file level below, you can just do what they call a relative path, in which you don't have to actually specify the entire path. However, and again, if I did present working directory and I wanted to go back to week 11, as I said, I can just do change directory week 11, which is a relative path, or I can do absolute. So I could say, for example, home, and then JSON, Python 3, and then week 11, and that also gets me to week 11, present working directory, week 11. But notice I actually had to do the entire path, because that's what we call an absolute path. So I would probably say, when in doubt, use the absolute path. Now, in the next example, we're going to do my file again. So we're going to say sudo vim my file right here, and we can see this time we want to create a file called new file.txt, and it's actually a blank file right now. However, so that means we don't have to create it. So we can go back to our commands right here and go back to this one right here. So os.o read only, write only, or read write, which is what we actually used before. This time, and let me do the eraser thing right there. This time we're only going to write the file, because we have verified that the file called mynewfile.txt already exists in week 12. So all we have to do is do write only, and we do the string here, and we encode the string. We encode, I should say, the string, and then we write the string to the file, and then it'll say file closed successfully. So let me quit that and let me run it. There we go. We have run it, and it should say file closed successfully. Now, I just wanted to point something out. We used what we call the absolute path right here, because when in doubt, we want to use the absolute path. Now, I had to use the absolute path because right now I'm in week 11 folder, not week 12. So I had to direct it specifically to week 12 in order for this to actually happen. So let's go ahead and run it. Did I just run it again? Did I run it? Maybe I did, but it worked. I know it works. So let's go ahead and use the relative path to get to week 12. And what does it say? No such. Okay. Well, I can't use the relative path. I have to go back, and then we can do week 12 from here. And now I'm in week 12. We have my new file. Let's go ahead and cat it out, my new file.txt. And here we actually have this quote right here: when the fall comes, kicking summer out on its treacherous ass, as it always does one day sometime after the midpoint of September. This is from one of my favorite books, Salem's Lot by Stephen King.